This is the perfect dish for a plated meal. I'm a personal chef, and I am passionate about cooking for people. When I'm cooking for a crowd, I typically choose between two types of meal, family style or plated. Plated dinners are just a great way to make an event feel extra special. I'm gonna make a peppercorn chicken for you that's gonna be accompanied by garlicky mashed sweet potatoes. These are so creamy and coming together so well. Sautéed broccoli, that's the sound of success. And then we're gonna top it all off with a beautiful fig sauce. It's gonna be a win of an entree for your plated meal. One of the reasons that I love to choose plated meals is because it really brings a formal feel to your gathering. It also allows you to control your portion sizes. It allows you to really flex your chef skills in the kitchen by beautifying simple ingredients on a plate that makes for a great wow for your guests. Let's get into making this peppercorn chicken. Marinating is essential to your protein. It gives it that much more flavor. It also helps keep it tender and keep it moist. And what we're gonna start with is we have some kosher salt here. And we've got some black pepper. We have garlic powder here. Now we're just gonna go in with a little honey, giving us that sweetness that's gonna help balance out with the mustard. And I love Dijon mustard. It's one of my favorite options for marinating. But if you don't have it, you can use yellow or you can even use some vinegar. And then I usually use a little bit of olive oil. Olive oil just gives it that great, robust flavor. It also is a vehicle to move all the other herbs and spices around. And finish with some fresh thyme. One of my favorite herbs, especially when I'm using chicken. And all I'm gonna do is just strip these twigs and go straight in here. It smells so good. There's something about thyme that just makes the house smell wonderful and someone knows you're cooking something delicious. So now that we have all of these things in here, we're just gonna mix them around and combine them, make sure all the chicken is evenly coated. You wanna do this a day before, but you can do it as little as an hour before your gathering. All right, transfer this to our sealable bag, which is perfect for storage in your fridge. It will take up minimal space, especially if you have other ingredients already in there for your gathering. Get all of this marinade out, because that's flavor, and we don't want it to go to waste. And then what you want to do is make sure that you get as much air out of the bag as possible, because that's going to ensure that the marinade itself stays intact near the chicken until we are ready to cook it. Transfer this to a sheet pan, flatten it down, and just store it into the refrigerator until it's time for us to cook. Now we're gonna move on to our sweet potatoes. First, we're going to peel them, and then we're gonna get them into some boiling water and infuse them with a lot more flavor. And one of the reasons I love to use sweet potatoes is because every good dish needs a starch, and it also assists you when you're plating. We have our sweet potatoes peeled, so this is gonna be our base, and it's gonna allow our chicken to be able to rest on top and to be able to lean our broccoli up against it, because I love a beautiful pile of food on the plate. And we're just gonna let these boil until they become fork tender. While our sweet potatoes are boiling, we're gonna move on to our fig sauce. Fig sauce really is what elevates this dish. It's kind of unexpected and it has a ton of beautiful flavor in it. So we're just gonna snip the tops off of these and then we're gonna do a rough chop on them. Nothing needs to be pretty about this. We just want them small enough so that they start to break down when we're making our sauce. And if you aren't able to get access to dried figs, you could use fresh, but you would want to cut back on the amount of liquid that you add because the fresh figs are going to have way more liquid content in them. So we have these all beautifully chopped. We have the nice bite-sized pieces. We have a few little larger chunks in here, which is going to be some nice texture in our sauce. Now we're just going to take our ingredients over to the stove. We're gonna go to a medium-high heat. We're just gonna take half a stick of butter and let it begin to melt in our pan. We're gonna add our onions and start to let them sweat. And the great thing about the sauce is just such a workhorse. You can use it for so many dishes. And we're just gonna cook these onions for about 3 to 4 minutes, just until they become a little translucent. Oh, we're hot, good. Now we're cooking. We have our beautiful translucent onions. Now we're gonna go in with our figs. The great thing about using dried figs is that all of the moisture has kind of been sucked out of them. So they've been concentrated. So you really get that nice fig flavor, and it's borderline candy. And this is starting to look really good. So we're gonna go ahead and go in here with our garlic. And we just have some minced garlic here. And we are ready to add in our chicken broth. And we're just gonna go in here with about 1.5 cups. And we're just gonna let this come to a simmer. Those figs are gonna continue to break down a little bit further, and it's gonna create this beautiful sauce situation. This is already smelling and looking really good. We're just gonna go ahead and go in here with some hot sauce, and you just kind of measure this with your heart. If you like a lot of spice, then add as much as you want or as little as you want. And then we're gonna go in here with some kosher salt and some black pepper. And now we're just gonna reduce the heat and kind of let this hum in the background while I work on my chicken seasoning. So we're gonna ground some fresh peppercorns. But if by chance you don't have time for this step, or you're kind of intimidated by it, feel free to use your pepper grinder. You can just put it on a coarse setting to get the same effect. And you just wanna apply a little pressure and then just rotate your pestle a little bit. You may have a few pop out and try to escape on you, but that's okay, we'll just keep going. I can see all the whole peppercorns are nicely broken, and these are perfect. I'm just gonna take my tongs and lye my chicken out. And you wanna make sure that you have enough pepper to nicely cover the front and back side of your chicken. Once we cover this side, we're gonna be ready to go to our skillet and get a beautiful sear on these chicken breasts. There we are, our chicken is ready to go. Now we're just gonna move over to our skillet. And that's exactly what you wanna hear, that beautiful roaring sear. And you wanna make sure that you put your chicken in the pan, presentation side down first. That's the smooth side of the chicken. That's the side of the chicken that's gonna be facing our guest. And what I'm looking for is for there to be like a thin white line that starts to form around the bottom of the chicken, letting me know that it's ready to flip. This only takes about 2 to 3 minutes per side. Look at that beautiful caramelization. Now that we have our chicken nicely seared, we're gonna go into the oven for about 12 to 15 minutes. So we have our chicken finishing up in the oven. Our sweet potatoes are perfectly cooked, and now we're going to strain, and then we're gonna return them back to our warm pot, just so we can kind of preserve that temperature. Let's go ahead and add our butter in here. And then we're gonna go in here with our cream, black pepper. You can also use white pepper, some kosher salt, and we're gonna go ahead and grate some garlic in here. And I like to grate it into this recipe just because it kind of melts away versus minced and having little sharp bites of garlic. And now we're gonna start mashing. And all you're wanting to do is make sure is that you get everything nicely incorporated. And the great thing about these sweet potatoes is that you can prep them 1 to 2 days in advance, and all you have to do is reheat them with a little bit of cream on the day of, and they'll be ready to go. These are so creamy, looking delicious, and coming together so well. All we're gonna do is set this off to the side for a second, and we're gonna go in with our herbs. Just a couple of tablespoons of rosemary, a couple of tablespoons of parsley. And you do have to be careful with the rosemary because sometimes you get these really woody stems. And all you wanna do is just go back here and make sure that you detach them from the leaves because you do not want that in your sweet potatoes. We're gonna go ahead and mince these up and add them in to our sweet potatoes. And the reason I chose parsley and rosemary is I just like the combination. I like the earthiness of the parsley. I feel like it contrasts really well with the sweetness of the sweet potatoes. And then I just love the beautiful fragrance of rosemary. It makes the space inviting. And I'm gonna mince this up pretty small because nobody wants a little piece of rosemary stuck in their teeth. And then we're just gonna add this in here. I don't feel like it's very often that you see fresh herbs put into a side like a starch, like a potato or something, but I feel like these flavors just work so well together and it's kind of unexpected. Now that our sweet potatoes are ready to go, we're just gonna return these back to the heat, put it on as low as it'll go, and that way these sweet potatoes will be perfect and ready for whenever our guests arrive. Let's check and see if our chicken's done. And what we're looking for is for our chicken to be 165 degrees. If your chicken is a few degrees under, that's okay. We're just gonna allow it to carry over cook. And what that means is that while the chicken rests, it will continue to come up in temperature. Now that our chicken is resting, we're gonna move on to our broccoli. And we saved it for last because vegetables cook relatively quick. So we're just gonna take these broccoli crowns and quarter them. You can also use cauliflower. So now we're gonna take it over to the stove and blanch it. We've got our boiling water. We're gonna add some kosher salt, which is just a way to begin the seasoning process and infuse some flavor into this broccoli. And all we're doing when we're blanching is just essentially immersing it in hot water and starting that cooking process. And it's only gonna take moments. We're just gonna prod it with a fork to make sure that it's nice and tender, perfect. And look at that beautiful bright green color. And now we're just gonna strain it. And then we're gonna return it to our bowl so we can season it. So we have some minced garlic here. We're gonna go with a little bit of salt. And then we have some crushed red pepper flake for some nice heat. You can just kind of gauge that based on your own personal preference of spice. Then we're gonna drizzle some honey over everything. And then we have some olive oil. Now we're just gonna toss all this together, making sure that everything is nicely coated. And now that we have our broccoli nicely seasoned, we're gonna go over here to saute. And first, let's get a little drizzle of olive oil in here. And that's the sound we want to hear. That's the sound of success. And what I'm looking for when I saute is to get some of that beautiful caramelization on here. But you have to make sure that your pan is nice and hot, or what will happen is that your vegetables will start to just release juice and they will steam themselves, and you won't get that beautiful color that you're looking for. And a little tip for when you're trying to get color on the florets is you can lean the broccoli against each other so you don't have to stand there and hold it. And now that we have our heat off, we're just gonna turn the broccoli onto some sides that maybe don't have enough color, and then we're just gonna let this hang out in the back, and the residual heat will give us the color we're looking for by the time we're ready to serve. When I'm thinking about my presentation, I'm thinking about the color of my plates, I'm thinking about the colors of the food items that I've selected, and when those ingredients come together, it's really that presentation that makes the event feel elevated and really special. And we're gonna start with these sweet potatoes right here in the center of the plate. And what I wanna do is just get a relatively decent mound here in the center because it's gonna serve as the foundation for everything else to rest on. And now we're gonna grab a piece of broccoli and we're just gonna perch it right up on top. And what I'm just doing is building color and layers. So you have that beautiful orange on the bottom, and then we have this beautiful green here. And now we're gonna get a piece of our chicken and slice it. I like to cut this on a bias, which is just an angle. And then we're just gonna perch this right up against the side of that broccoli. And we're just gonna finish this with a little bit of that beautiful juice from this fig sauce. Just for a little razzle dazzle, we're gonna finish it off with a beautiful green garnish. And what I have here are some watercress greens, and we're just gonna drizzle them with a little bit of olive oil. You could also use arugula, you could use any kind of microgreens if you have them. I'm just gonna sprinkle a little bit of salt over here because we always wanna give anything we're using to put on a plate a little bit of flavor. We're gonna use our tongs and just give this a light toss, just to make sure everything is nicely coated. And then you really just wanna make sure you pinch it, because we just want it to sit right on top of everything, but we don't want it to steal the show. Plated dinners are all about ingredients and presentation. All you need is a protein, a couple of beautiful vegetables, bringing it all together to make something fantastic on a plate. And by amping it up with a marinade or two and a couple of really good sauces, you're gonna take your plated dinner to the next level.